Simple plots of data points can be created using plot. Although you can type all of the expressions that you would need in order to create a plot in the command window, it's actually easiest to do that in a script. So to begin with, what you do is you create variables that store the data. You can store one or more point, but the vectors that you use have to be the same length. So for example, you could have vectors named x and y, that would be common. Or if x is going to be just 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., you can omit that. So what you do is you create your x and y vectors that store the x and y coordinates of your points, and then you can pass them to the plot function. So you can say plot x comma y, or again, if x is just going to be 1, 2, 3, etc., you don't even need that x vector. You could just say plot y. The default with plot is that it's going to plot individual points. They're going to be very tiny and very difficult to see, with straight line segments in between them. But there are lots of other options that you can specify in an additional string argument. So these options can include the color, for example, B for blue, G for green, K for black, R for red, etc. And they can include plot symbols or markers. For example, you can specify you want to plot the points with a plus sign or an asterisk or an O. You can also include line types in between the points. Example, dash dash is for dash line. So for example, you could say plot x comma y, assuming that you've created your x and y vectors that store the x and y coordinates of your points, with a third argument that says as a string g asterisk dash dash. So what that will do is that will plot green asterisks with dash line in between those individual points. By default, you don't get any labels on the plot at all. So nothing on the axes, no title on the plot. So you can create those using functions xlabel, ylabel, and title, and to each of those you pass a string. So xlabel parentheses a string, whatever you have in the string, that's what will show up as the label on the x-axis. Same thing for ylabel, and the title goes on top of the plot. Again, whatever you put inside of the string, that's the title that will show up on your plot. What MATLAB does is it creates the x and y axes by default using the values from your x and y data vectors, so using the minimum and maximum values from those vectors. So what that means is that some of the points end up being right on the axes, and therefore it's kind of difficult to see them. So if you want to specify different ranges for the axes, for example, if you want to create a little space around all of your points so you can see all of them, you can use the axis function. So you pass to the axis function a vector that has 4 numbers in it. The first 2 are the minimum maximum values that you want for the x vector, and the last 2 are the minimum maximum values for the y. Here are some other plot functions that are really useful. CLF will clear the figure window, so if you happen to have anything in there, it will clear it out. The function figure will create a new figure window. So for example, you can specify the number. You can say figure 1 and then do a plot, figure 2 and then do a plot, and so forth, so you'll get different figure windows. Hold is what's called a toggle, meaning that you do it once, you turn it on, you turn the feature on, you do it again, you turn it off. So if you say hold, it turns hold on. If you say hold again, it turns off. Or you can specifically say hold on or hold off. And what that does when you have hold on is it keeps the current graph in the figure window so that then you could put something else on top of it, so that then you could superimpose another graph. And if you did that, then you would want a legend to tell you which is which. So there's a legend function that will do that. The grid function will put grid lines on your graph, which can be helpful. And you can use bar instead of plot in order to create a bar chart of the values from your data vectors, for example, x and y. One thing that's important is you want to have enough points in order to get a relatively smooth graph.